Hi, welcome again. I'd like to take today a little bit of time and I'd like to answer a question that I get a lot. I find that as I teach consciousness or as we get into conversations about the universe and the eternal self and just our inner essence and all of these things, I often get asked what I think or how I would describe God. God, of course, is a very esoteric concept that has become, I guess, a standard word, which means source, creator, many different things to many different people, but ultimately the essence that spawned everything that is. So I'd like to use a metaphor to help you understand what I think God is. And I base this from my own experiences, when I had my own conversation with, or when I had my own experience with God, Spirit. It was consciousness. It was really unimaginable, but that's really the best I can tell you is that it is everywhere. It is everything. It is connected to and part of and creates everything. And in higher states of awareness, we individuals can actually connect to the stream of consciousness that we call God. So I'll give you an example in my metaphor. If you imagine that the ocean were God, and that you were to sail a boat or row a boat out into the middle of the ocean, and you were to be surrounded by, on and in God, and you were to take a cup and you were to dip it into the ocean and raise it out, you would have an individualized cup of sea or God that was of that same source, but not the source, because obviously the ocean is still the ocean. This is just a separate cup of ocean or a separate cup of God. And if you were to do this hundreds and thousands of times, all with a different shape, different color, different style of mug, you would have what I would tell you are people, each of us with being the containers or the vessels that have this consciousness of ocean or God within us. We're not God, but we are of and contain a portion of it within us. I think this is exactly the teachings of the inner kingdom and the kingdom being within, and that God being within each and every one of us. It is consciousness, really, if you think about it, that collects all atoms together. All molecular structures are a form of consciousness that shapes particles and molds them and holds them together. The entire universe has been made and created from energy, particles, consciousness, and matter. And so from that standpoint, if you were to take all of these cups, millions and billions, as in people, and you were to disperse them all over the world in different places, in different geographical climates, and expose them to all different elements and all different environments, and then you were to actually take those cups and you were to reconvene them and pour them back into the ocean, each with their own new elements, each with their own new experiential components, that's exactly how I think that we work. And when we die, we give up the spirit goes back into the collective of all spirit, and I think that's the purpose of our life and our existence. As we go through life, we are shaped, we are molded, we experience so many things on so many different levels from one extreme to another. Happy, sad, good, bad, up, down, you name it, we experience it. And as we go along, what that does is that experience actually makes us move from a level of, I would say, outer materialistic physical world focus to become more mindful And as we become more mindful, we begin to think about experiences. We begin to understand cause and effect. We begin, why one thing leads to another, how one thing typically leads to another. We begin to understand how we are in large part co-creators of what we experience, of what we think, of what we feel, all on the ongoing process and this ongoing evolutionary process of our individualized cup of consciousness or God or C. So life, in my opinion, is about us each molding, shaping, forming our individualized portion. And as we become mindful of our lives, we start looking inward at that consciousness, or we may become aware of that consciousness for the first time, or we may recognize it in glimpses and periods and snapshots, which we call spirit or spiritual experiences, or altered states of consciousness, or near-death experiences are such an experience where I believe that people see the stream of consciousness that I'm referring to. They call it the light. And so in this way, what I'm trying to facilitate and teach, and why I'm explaining this, God essentially is pure consciousness. Thought, if you can imagine, has no form, has no shape, unless we want it to. If we focus our thoughts intently enough, we actually create form. We can make something, we can mold something, we can fabricate something, but that is our conscious thought manifesting. So certainly, God, consciousness, has the ability to form itself or take any form it chooses. But in essence, God, I think we can all agree, is not an old, bearded, white-haired man that sits up in heaven and looks down upon us, waiting to judge us and hoping that we do all of these things. God is source, creation of all that is, from the essence of thought and pure consciousness. Now, consciousness comes in many forms. I believe this also addresses the whole concept of good and evil, and why we talk about the yin and the yang and the balance of opposites and all of these things. Because I believe consciousness can also take the form of negative, bad, ego, self-serving. And when we're looking at this, we see these two sides within each and every one of us. We all have the ability to make choices that are either based in love, which are the God choices, the spirit choices, the divine choices, the choices that lead us to higher planes of existence, a choice that is for someone else, altruistic in behavior, for nothing for yourself, just because of care, of kindness, of compassion, thoughtfulness. All of these things are things that lead us to the white, the light, the good. On the other side of the coin, all of the thoughts or all of the consciousness that leads to actions, words, and deeds that are self-serving, that are selfish, that are focused on our needs, our wants, our desires, and often and many times at the cost of others, these are things which I think essentially get termed as evil or as negative, as dark. I think that this is the physical us being as opposed to the spiritual us and our being. Mindfulness is the place where we actually can sit and honestly look at our behavior when we're being this way and our behavior when we're being this way. And mindfulness is what allows us to choose what we want to do. Do we choose to be like God, be like our Creator, to follow the teachings? Or do we choose to be of this earth and follow it, and follow materialistic pursuits and pursuits of the realm of ego? This, I believe, is the difference between heaven and hell, good and evil, light and dark. And it's in the inner kingdom of mind that we're able to see and discern and choose which way we go and how we follow. Ultimately, what we find is that the rewards of the physical world, the choices on this side of the circle, which are self, always end up being very short-lived. They always end up being very empty, and they quickly turn, and we find that we are again unfulfilled. It doesn't take long before our new car gets a scratch or a dent, but for an eternity do we get to carry around giving a stranger a ride or helping someone else. It never goes away. It never ends up coming back to become a source of our grief or our pain, unless, of course, the negative mind enters in and we start thinking about, look what that cost me, what's in it for me. All of these things are part of those lessons that lead us to higher levels of conscious awareness. When you boil it all down, it's all about frequencies and vibration. Every piece of matter is a frequency and a vibration that it resonates at to be what it is. The more dense an object, the lower the frequency, the vibration. On the opposite side, the higher the frequency vibration, the more transmutable and the more, I guess, transparent it becomes. Light versus dark. The whole concept being is that our frequencies change vibration with the thoughts and the consciousness that is within us. When we are negative, when we are down, they say we feel heavy. On the other hand, when we're up, when we're in love, we feel light, because our frequency physically changes. We vibrate at a higher frequency. The closer we are to love, the more love that there is functioning and operating inside of us, the lighter we become, the higher we vibrate, the more we resonate with the universe, the more in tune we become with nature, the more capable we are of contacting or hearing the stream or the inner kingdom, the spirit within, because it is the essence of us that is in the jar of the body, that when we're vibrating at higher frequencies, we can attune with it. And the whole thing with the circles of life, when I teach about coming into balance and balancing body, mind, and soul, as we increase our vibrational frequency of our mind, our bodies heal and increase vibrational frequency. As we increase the vibration of our soul, our bodies heal and they become more whole as they vibrate and resonate on a higher level. When our mind and our body and our spirit are aligned, you can focus like a laser, concentration, and as you learn how to love more, as you learn how to accept, as you learn how to forgive, as you learn how to be kind, as you learn compassion, all of the things that are qualities that are taught in all religions and all scriptures, all spiritual teachings, they all are teaching us the same thing. As we become the things that are associated and fundamentally make up love, we become all of these things that are lighter, better, closer to source, closer to divine. I believe that it's in that place that of pure heart, of pure mind, of pure body and pure consciousness that's based in love, that allows us to, pick your miracle, to heal, to walk on water, to walk through walls, to levitate, to whatever it is you want to do, or whatever you want to compare it to. It's all a matter of vibrational frequency. So, in this way, I'm hoping that you can look at your own life and be mindful of the choices that you make, of the things in your life that you're choosing to do right now. I use a very simple tool when I'm trying to operate in my own life. I ask myself, okay, I have a choice in front of me. What would love do? Not love for myself, but love in general. Because sometimes we all know, even love has to punish a child. Even love sometimes has to be harsh. Even love sometimes has to have rigid boundaries and hurt feelings and do things like that. Because if it's really out of love, it's what's best for all the individuals and for the situation at hand. Not what's best for me, not what I want, not what I wish, not what I desire, not thinking about all the negative ramifications or all the positive ramifications and how it's all going to impact me and my personal world. But what would I do if I made this decision out of love? I think you'll find that your decisions would be altered, and if you follow that basic, simple rule, I think that you'll also find that you'll be able to discern those moments where you'll see the battle that occurs between each and every one of us, where you really want to make this choice, but you know it's not what love would do. The question is, which choice do you make? I believe that's how we elevate in spiritual terms. I believe that's how we draw closer to divinity. I think it was Paul in the Bible who said, all things are permissible, but not all things are profitable. You can do whatever you want to do. You can choose whatever you want to choose. Consciousness, God, bestowed in you, is your free will choice to do as you will. But that doesn't mean that just because it is your choice and that's what you choose, that it's going to profit you or benefit you in the long run. I think a lot of times we're very short-sighted and we fail to see the bigger picture or down the road or the damage or the harm that we end up doing to ourselves mentally, spiritually, and physically by these short-sighted choices. I do believe that the world is about to change. I do believe, after studying a myriad of cultures, whether it be the Egyptians, the Mayans, the I Ching, the Vedas, they all seem to point to a new time that is heading our way. Yes, it is the proposed 2012, December 21st time, the age of Aquarius as we enter into it. But I believe what this time is going to require from us and of us is that we need to elevate our own consciousness. We need to become more divine, more enlightened, more aware of our choices. We need to make more decisions out of love and compassion and kindness and all of those qualities than we do for ourselves and for things like ego and money. Think about it from a government or a political or a corporate standpoint. If you were really to sit in the place of our government or of a corporation, such as the oil companies, if you were to make those decisions out of love and what's best for the people, don't you see where different choices would be being made? Don't you see where our government would be focused on different things? Don't you see where our corporations really are working against us? They're run by people, supposedly for people, to benefit people, yet in reality they all operate off hidden agendas of profit and motivation, to where they are actually using the people that they were built to serve. So, what would love do? I think as more of us awaken to the concept of answering this question or walking this question in our daily lives, I think we're going to be less likely to do things that bring negative, harmful, hurtful consequences upon us. And if all the leaders of every corporation were to really ask, what is right by the people? What is ethical by the people? How can I maintain all of these jobs and maintain a reasonable profit without gouging, without harming, without misinforming, and actually be ethical and actually be honorable in the way we operate? I think the world would begin to change overnight. If they weren't buying political votes so they could get laws passed that are actually painful and harmful to us, the consumer, the people that they tend to want to take the money from in the first place, They want to addict us. They want to grab us. They want to... all of these things would go away. The world would begin to change. If our politicians were actually elected officials that's only purpose and goal was to serve the people, as if it was their own children, as if it was their own family that they were taking care of, I think they would fight different battles. I think they would make different things important. All of this, just an eye, just a look in the mirror for humanity. But it starts with you and me. It starts with each and every one of us being able to look in the mirror and look into our own eyes and ask ourselves, are we being a benefit to humanity? Are we being a benefit to others? Do I help more than I hurt? Do I give more than I receive? Are my goals and my intentions and my focuses to improve society, family, relationship, friends, company, loved ones? Or am I just trying to see what I can get for myself? This will determine and show you your current level of conscious awareness. All of this is free will choice. I'm merely trying to make each of us aware of the choices that we make and the impact that it has. If consciousness is what God is, and frequencies are what separate the dimensions, you start thinking about concepts like what Jesus said about my Father's house has many mansions. My Father's house has many rooms is as simple as coming to the concept of there are different frequencies that create different dimensions of space and time and realities. If life is eternal and we are conscious, if the soul really is eternal and it can't be burned, it can't be destroyed, it really is consciousness that can carry on for eternity, I think I would rather be going up in consciousness, elevating and climbing the ladder, growing closer to love, heaven, whatever you'd like to refer to it as, versus descending the ladder of consciousness as my soul grows darker and heavier and more self-absorbed and more I. This is the age-old conversation of the Bible in separation. The more separated we are from God, our divine identity, from love, compassion, and all of these qualities, the further down we are, descended, cast out of heaven, as it were, descended into the pit. When you start really thinking about all of these things, it all makes sense. Every religion has points and counterpoints. Life has points and counterpoints. It's all about the journey through consciousness, returning to the sea of consciousness, mirroring from the inside out our highest level of consciousness at the highest vibrational frequency possible, which is love. Pure, untainted, unconditional love of self and others. Love is the way. This is what we've been taught. This is what we've been told throughout all forms of teachings. Hope, faith, and love. Of these, love is the greatest of them all. I believe you will find that is the story of heaven and hell. I believe you will find that is the whole story of Lucifer. He was cast out of heaven, God's most prized and most beautiful angel, cast out of heaven because he wanted to be God, wanted to be more powerful or be equal to God. Ego, cast out of heaven, thrown to the earth to rule over the physical domain. Is that not the battle that each one of us face every single day as we walk this knowing what we should do, but yet being tempted to do the things we know we shouldn't? Think about it. It's all about consciousness. Good and evil exist within each one of us as a choice of free will. Do we choose to serve our beast, or do we choose to serve our spirit, our God, our divine self. It's a choice that you get to make. It's a choice that each and every one of us gets to make every day. And if we, the people, would all get to this place where we were conscious of the choices we were making, and we made a choice to choose the good, the light, the kindness, the compassion, the love, the caring, all the qualities of light, the world would change in a heartbeat. The only thing that separates us from heaven on earth and creating this place is us. We are in our own way because we're not consciously choosing love and higher things. Instead, we're choosing self, me first, what's in it for me. We're choosing out of fear. Well, I don't want to get taken advantage of. I don't want to lose this. I don't want my stuff to get ruined or hurt. We're choosing out of fear. We're choosing out of ego. So, as you walk through this process, look at your own self, look at your own choices, look into the mirror, gaze into your own eyes. Ask yourself, I'm making this choice. And recognize the choices that you're making of self, selfish, ego, fear, and ask yourself, what would be its opposite? What would be the choice that love would make? What would love do? What would Jesus do? What would God choose for the greater good of all the situation involved? And just see where you are. Anyway, just a little snippet on the whole conversation of consciousness and God and the inner spirit and the kingdom within. Have a great day, and I hope that you make all the choices that you need to grow to the next level. Thanks.